Goon is a perfectly serviceable hockey movie from 2011 that manages to be both deeply homophobic, deeply gay, and perfectly fun to even non-hockey fans such as myself.
Greek fucking underground gay porn hard!
Goon, Last of the Enforcers, which came out in 2017, is a perfectly serviceable sequel to Goon, with just about as much homoerotic homophobia and enough urination jokes to tell me that somebody on the writing team was really into water sports. There was definitely a piss guy on this film, and honestly good for him. Both of these films had one fatal flaw, however, and that is the main character's love interest, Eva. Eva is a horrible person, and the writing is self-aware enough to have her acknowledge that out loud.
You're actually nice, and I'm a huge bitch.
But not self-aware enough to punish her for it in the narrative. In fact, the narrative in both films repeatedly punished Doug for things that were absolutely not examples of him doing wrong, as though he's a young child learning life lessons the hard way, even though the lessons he's learning don't line up with anything he did to supposedly earn them. I could tear apart this clusterfuck of a character and relationship for hours, but I am far more interested in using this nightmare as a segue to talk about something which I hold much more near and dear to my heart, in terms of something I find more important to talk about. Not that I enjoy the concept of what I'm talking about today, which is the infantilization of autistic men, and how that reveals itself in media. That whole spiel I just gave at the beginning about how insufferable Eva is not just an arbitrary example, though there is definitely something else to be said about how if Eva was a man and Doug was a woman, the narrative would have probably gone far differently, but that's its own topic for another video. No, I brought up this relationship in particular because, well, Doug is super autistic. It's never explicitly said in either of the films, and before anyone comes for my throat, yes, I know it's technically based on a real story, but as others have pointed out, the contents of these films are very far removed from the real person to where it's basically its own thing. Doug Glatt, the character, is very autistic. Autistic enough to where I found a very angry Reddit thread from a hockey fan ranting about just how autistic he was. It was deeply ableist, but very funny to read. Average Reddit moment. If you still need convincing, here's a short compilation of clips I have put together from the films to demonstrate my point.
Hard!
Hard.
Gay porn hard! Gay porn hard!
Hey, what happened? Did you just watch Rudy?
I'm just not in love with him.
You're not? Hey, had to go potty?
Sometimes I sleep with that Angus the Highlander doll.
There's nothing weird about that. It's official. All we did was make out.
I'm a slut, Doug. I'm horny a lot. I sleep around.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't bother you.
Maybe you and I could hang out sometime? You know, get, like, coffee? I don't drink coffee, but I like Gatorade, and I like power drinks and water.
Awesome.
It doesn't even matter if I'm thirsty or not. Bye, Eva. I'm gonna watch you walk up the stairs. One time, my friends built this bike ramp behind the medical center. It was really windy that day, so I started pedaling really fast, and as I was going up the ramp, wind blew like these bloody rags like right into my face, and I crashed into the dumpster, and I started like rolling around into like the medical waste because I was so disoriented. I broke my ankle like in 3 places, and the worst part is there's this big bag of pee, and I rolled over on it, and it like burst all over me. So you think it's funny too?
Yes, very much so.
So yes, Doug is very autistic. Whether or not that was intended in the writer's room is anyone's guess, but either way, they did intend for him to be unintelligent. How do I know this?
I'm stupid. Doug, you're not that stupid. I am. I'm stupid. You're gay. I'm stupid. He's gay. Stupid. Gay.
We get it.
Stupid. Gay.
Okay.
Well, you have one stupid son, and you got a gay son.
Oh, God.
Regardless of whether it is autism or just a general lack of intellectual ability, or both, the infantilization is also there, and not just with Eva, though she definitely is the biggest example of this. Throughout the first film, his parents repeatedly make it very clear that they don't think he's capable of making decisions for himself, something which Eva also does a fair bit in the second film. And Eva consistently talks talks to him like he's a child. It's subtle enough, especially in the first movie, to where you may not catch it if you haven't experienced it in your own life, but there is a certain way in which some people, not all, will speak to disabled people, or anybody who they believe to be intellectually lower than themselves, that is eerily similar to how they will often speak to children, whether it be through tone of voice or dumbing down the wording of things.
Eva likes Doug. Eva likes you.
Now, this might have been a cute little scene if it was just a one-off thing, or if it was a bit that they repeatedly did with each other throughout the story, but this type of shit is one-sided, and she consistently does it throughout both films, and it's never addressed for what it is, which is her infantilizing him. Whether the character is supposed to be autistic or not, she is still infantilizing him, and so do his parents, both through actually plot-relevant moments, and also general dialogue, and it makes rewatching these films kind of frustrating, even though I otherwise do quite enjoy them.
It's an infantile way for a man to spend his adult years.
The next example I want to talk about is a show that I have not watched all the way through because I don't hate myself that much. However, I don't need to because all I have to talk about is within the first episode, which I have watched. I am talking about, of course, The Good Doctor. Sean Murphy is an adult man. He is a full-grown adult. An adult man. He is a man. An adult man. An adult human male. Why do I keep repeating this sentiment? Well, because if you just heard the other characters talking about him in the first episode, you would think he's a child. Not only do they literally call him a kid at multiple points, even though, again, he is an adult man, but they also do the thing I was talking about in Goon, where they act like he can't make his own decisions. And there's no way to slice this other than what it is, because the entire point of The Good Doctor is that he is autistic and also a surgeon.
I'm a surgeon. I am 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 a surgeon. Dr. Hahn, I am a surgeon.
The whole draw to the show is, what if we did a shitty medical drama but the lead was also autistic? Whereas Goon's infantilization of Doug is subtle enough to miss if you aren't paying attention, and the character may not have even been intended to be autistic, The Good Doctor lays bare exactly the heart of my point, which is that autistic men tend to be infantilized in fiction as well as in real life, but, also in fiction. Community, despite otherwise doing a great job in its representation of autism through the character Abed, has many instances, especially early on, of Britta treating Abed, an adult man, like he is a child.
Abed, you cannot talk to us that way.
In Atypical, Sam's mother infantilizes him throughout the entire show, and while this is called out at multiple points for what it is, what isn't properly called out is multiple points where Sam crosses lines that are not acceptable for someone his age, or any age really, to cross, and they aren't really punished accordingly because, well, he's autistic.
You can't climb through people's windows, it's illegal.
Well, I couldn't ring the doorbell. Her boyfriend works weird hours, so she doesn't like it when people come to the door because he might be sleeping. It's one of their rules.
She has a boyfriend? What kind of teenager lives with her boyfriend?
Julia's not a teenager, she's 26 3/4.
Julia, your therapist?
I'll talk more on this later, but there's a slippery slope with infantilization because when you view somebody as a child, or younger than they actually are, because of a disability, people will tend to let a lot of shit slide when it shouldn't, and we see this a lot in Atypical. All of the examples I've given are of adult men, but there is also definitely something to be said about how the overwhelming majority of autistic male characters are children. Now, you might be wondering, why the fixation on autistic men? Doesn't that seem a little sexist to imply that this is a problem that only affects men? And you're absolutely right. Autistic women deal with infantilization all the time. This one's sort of an obvious example, but the titular character from Music, see as awful inspiration porn movie about an autistic teenager, is heavily infantilized throughout the entire film. Obviously, that is far from the biggest issue with this film, but yes, this affects women as well. I'm not saying it doesn't. There are two chief reasons why this video is focused on men, however. For one, in media especially, but to an extent also in real life, this more heavily affects autistic men compared to women. Out of the teenage and autistic girl characters that come to mind, the ableism and ostracization they face is more isolation-based. Examples include Entrapta being repeatedly treated like a burden by the other princesses in She-Ra.
I should have known better than to trust you. You don't care about Glimmer or any of us. You only care about tech.
Are you all mad at me?
Dr. Brennan not being understood by most of her coworkers in Bones.
Maybe you just want to, chill a little?
Chill?
Yeah, take a pill.
Or, like, most of Season 1 of Inside Job.
Haha, who's an antisocial weirdo now? Not the girl who invented robot arms to hug strangers. Oh my god, I sound insane.
Because autism in women is generally seen as less severe due to systematic and medical sexism, as well as the increased need for masking among autistic women or any AFAB autistic person, infantilization doesn't come up as much as other forms of ableism do generally for autistic women. The more glaring issue with this, however, that is specific to men, is what I brought up earlier with atypical. Mentally disabled people often get treated like children, which allows them to get away with a lot more shit unchecked than non-disabled counterparts. When you combine this with the whole boys will be boys mentality that allows a lot of men in general to get away with really horrendous shit, that can become really problematic really quickly. Paige Layell did a whole video about this, which I will link below, but the infantilization surrounding autistic men can lead to very real consequences in fiction and in the real world.
I think there's a correlation between teaching our autistic boys and teaching society that autistic boys cannot understand boundaries and social regulations, and so therefore they don't apply.
Media has, throughout time, this can be observed, caused change within the real world, for better and for worse. You see more gay people in television? You're gonna be less weirded out if you, a straight person, see a gay person in public. If you watch Split, you might think everyone with dissociative identity disorder is dangerous. Stuff like that. With things like The Good Doctor and Goon and Atypical, and even those scenes in Community existing out there, it is subtly contributing to the real world issue of the infantilization of autistic men. The way to remedy this? We need more autistic male characters who aren't infantilized. We need more autistic male characters who are called out accordingly if they do something wrong, and it's not just brushed off because, oh, he's autistic, he doesn't know any better. And if infantilization comes up in the plot, which I don't think it shouldn't, I think it is a legitimate issue that should be addressed in media, which is also a way to, help address the issue in real life. If you address it in media, it needs to be acknowledged as such instead of just, oh yeah, that's how you talk to and about autistic men. Speaking from experience, better representation solves a lot more than you may realize, and it would be super cool to see it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've wanted to talk about this sort of stuff for a while now, but I didn't get my proper autism diagnosis until recently, and I wanted to hold off until then to really dive into this stuff since, unfortunately, people tend to dismiss this sort of thing until you have a diagnosis, but I do have a diagnosis now, so I feel I can, more talk about it. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing. I have lots of fun videos planned for this summer and the future in general, and I also do music and stuff like that, so if any of that interests you, please do consider subscribing. I'd love to have you around more. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Goodbye.